Welcome to Defying the Odds podcast, the podcast where grit, resilience, and drive take center stage. I am Leonovsky, political refugee from the Soviet Union, and now professor of entrepreneurship.
I'm Victor Salcida, a formerly incarcerated individual turned software engineer and social entrepreneur on a mission to empower justice-impacted individuals through technology, education, and systemic change.
In 2018, I was fortunate to have Victor as one of my students while he was incarcerated. Fast forward, we're both free to find opportunities, challenge stereotypes as business partners, community leaders, and co-anchors of this life-changing podcast, where we dive deep into powerful conversations with guests who have shattered their own barriers and defied their own odds.
On each episode, we're here to bring you not just stories, but strategies, real tools to help you take on challenges in life, business, and beyond.
So tune in, be inspired, and get ready to defy your own odds.
This is Defying the Odds podcast, where no challenge is too great to conquer.
Let's go.
Leo, how you doing today?
What's up? Boom, boom. Yeah. We're here together for one of a kind type of meeting. So we're taping a few of these episodes so that we get a chance to share some of our each other, and so you can learn a bit more about each other.
Yeah, so let's kick this thing off, if you don't mind. And the first question I'm going to ask is how do you defying the odds?
Defying the odds for me is been an evolution because of my background. So I was born in the Soviet Union in the city of Minsk, and the joke is that when I was mad at my parents growing up, and I called them capitalists, like, you capitalists, right? It's like my whole life was all about the propaganda was such that you looked at the West as the enemy. We were under constant threat. There were, I heard recently that in 1950s and under the nuclear threat, the Cold War, the American children would go into the bunkers during school hours. Well, I was growing up in 1980s, and that's what we did.
Right.
We never left 1950s. The Cold War was very real to us. And for me, defying the odds at that moment meant survival. I was bullied a lot in school, and defying the odds was, how do I avoid being beaten? How do I avoid being persecuted? I was redhead, Jewish, and pretty loud mouth guy. And so defying the odds is really seeking out opportunities and turning obstacles into opportunities. I think that's how I would define it, because obstacles that I often see are really not obstacles. They're a teaching moment. They're a thing to get me to further define and shape the vision that I have, right? So I think defying the odds for me is that ability of shaping by crashing into the obstacles, as one of our mutual mentors say, collision learning. So yeah, I think that is number one. And then the other piece to this is that when I am faced with an obstacle that I need to defy,
right,
I know what the game is. And the game is find the right people. That's it. The game is not what am I supposed to do? It's not how am I supposed to do it? Those two are really important. But those are not the questions. The question that I immediately ask is, and how I defy the odds again and again, is by asking, who do I need around me in order to solve this problem?
I love that you already know that going into some of this stuff, because what we've seen is you do need that community and support, and I love that you call that out early on and defining it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, looking back over, the years, and I'm sure the listeners want to hear more, just like what were some of those, formative experiences growing up that really stood out to you, growing up where, you kind of defied the odds in your own way?
Yeah. I think the first defying the odds moment for me was coming to America as a
Boom.
political refugee. And it was 1989. I was in sixth grade.
That's when I was born, y'all. So
Exactly. But don't make me feel old. But I was, I remember really clearly it was March of that year. And uh, because of the softening of the relations with Glasnost and Perestroika, after which I named one of our heroes, we were able to then leave. There was a permission. We could petition to leave the Soviet Union. They stripped us of our citizenship, and we had to leave everything behind but $50 to a person and some suitcases. So the good news is we were not the first or the last. So there were people ahead of us, right? Talk about role models. We had one of my father's co-workers who 2 years earlier did the immigration. And then at that point, it was a process of asylum seeking. So the Soviet Union would kick you out because you requested it.
Right.
And then we all had to go through Austria and Italy, and in Italy seek asylum in different countries. So seek asylum in the United States, seek asylum in Canada, seek asylum in Israel, wherever, Australia, right? Germany. People have tried many, many things, and some people kept getting rejected. Having someone champion you was a big deal, even back then. And so, because we had someone in the United States who were vouching for us and saying that they would take care of us if we mess up, made a big difference, right? And so, but that going back to that moment, I remember getting onto the train, and I was a tiny kid at 12 years old. I have a 12-year-old now, and my 12-year-old is 5'8", 140 pounds.
Yeah.
Hockey player.
Yep.
I think it would be lucky if I was 80. I might have been 70. I was so small that my Jewish grandmother nicknamed me a fertile off, which is Yiddish for a quarter of something.
Okay.
So I wasn't the whole thing. I was just like 1/4, not even a half.
Yeah.
When I learned what it meant, I was like, not even a half.
Yeah.
Come on, grandma. But anyway, so I was so small that my parents put me into the luggage compartment, and so they would push the suitcases. We had 13 suitcases. Wow. So 3 suitcases with our clothes and 10 of things we were going to sell along the way to survive, right?
Wow.
And I was in the compartment, and I was like pushing them with my feet, stacking them.
Wow.
Right? I was the stacker. And I have a really interesting story about defining as and knowing when something is right. Because we talked to several people about like knowing that this is the thing I'm supposed to do. I've had moments like this, and if you think about in your life, you've had moments like this when you know that this is right. When somebody offered you that job at Code for America, you knew that was right. Right? It's a gut feeling. It's not about data. So I had this, one of my most memorable moments of my childhood is we're on the train from the Soviet Union to Vienna. And the train stops at the border with Poland. And I could see the barbed wire, no man's land and barbed wire, right? So the soldiers come in, check our papers, right? Whatever. And of course, I'm a 12-year-old kid. My face is glued to the window, and the train starts to move, and I see by my window we pass the no man's zone, right? And we get through, and we get on the other side and kept going.
Yeah.
And I turned to my parents, and crazy. I turned to my parents and I say, I am hungry. Я хочу кушать. I want to eat. And they looked at me like I was nuts. because the backstory is I had a terrible appetite growing up, and my parents had to plead, beg, and bribe me to eat anything. That's why I was a quarter of something. And it's like, and at that moment, I was like, I am hungry. And so they gave me my sandwich. I ate my sandwich, and then I ate all of their sandwiches.
Okay.
And I never stopped eating since. So the joke is that freedom agrees with my digestion. But that defying the odds moment would not have been possible if my parents were not willing to take a huge chance and take me out, because they didn't want to go, but they didn't want me to live in that country. They didn't want to live in that country.
That's a huge decision to have, to make that for your children. Like, hey, this isn't a situation. Essentially, when we're talking about like my grandma and how she had decided to send us to Washington, like the same thing here. They seen that like this wasn't going to be a good upbringing for you. They had that vision. So you got to appreciate your parents for at least even considering like, hey, what's the outcome of my children's lives going to be? And obviously they wanted something better for you, so they decided to move you to the States.
Yeah, they did. And I remember my uncle at the time, my mother's brother, Alec, he was totally against it, and he was saying, you guys are making the biggest mistake of your life. This is all propaganda. There's nothing out there, right? And and my parents had to kind of overcome that and say, no, we're going to go anyways. We're going to take a chance. Again, defying the odds. You don't know the outcome. That's not the point. The point that you don't have enough information is not an excuse not to act. You have to act and then move forward. They have no idea what their jobs were. They didn't speak any English. I didn't speak any English. And it was a leap of faith. But it wasn't just blind. We had people on the other side to catch us. Mm-hmm. We had a program, Operation Exodus, to help support us when we got to the United States, once we got approval.
Right.
And I remember, like, as far as formative experiences, my first real job was a criminal one, actually.
Say more.
So in Europe, in Italy, we needed to make money, and because we had some subsidy, but we needed to make as much money because we didn't know what we were going to eat. We didn't know how it was going to be. We needed to save every penny. And so we brought a bunch of stuff to sell, but we didn't have a sales permit. So these Russian Jewish immigrants would go to the marketplaces and put out their little wares and on the tablecloths.
Yeah.
And we would sell it. And my job was to run around and sell these portable water heaters, tiny little water heaters that you plug in directly into the socket and boil water, and the nesting dolls, matryoshkas, that you see around the thing, and clocks, alarm clocks.
Okay.
So, and I used to run around the Italian marketplace saying, "Una lira, una lira."
How old were you?
I was 12, right? 12. And I was a salesman back then. But I remember when we'd be sitting there and it was hot and it was miserable and we were trying to sell, and then everybody all of a sudden like, police. So we would grab all our stuff and haul it out and haul ourselves out of there. And my poor mother, oh my God bless her. She was miserable. She hated that so bad. My dad, he kind of grinned and bared it. I loved it. For me, that's when I knew I'm supposed to be a showman, right?
Yeah. I was gonna say it sounds like the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, exactly. But it's an interesting story. At the end of the 3.5 months that we spent in Italy, I earned myself a commission of $7 worth. All right.
Okay.
7,000 liras. And I bought a knife. That's what I bought. That's what I spent the 7,000 liras for.
Yeah.
I bought a knife to protect my family.
Oh, wow.
When we go to America, right? Because the stories that I've heard about America was that it's all gangs and drugs and crime,
Wow.
right? And so yeah, I still have the knife. It's kind of interesting. Never used it except for cutting butter and stuff. But yeah, that moment was really defining for me because it taught me that no one else is going to do it for you, right? No one else is going to do what you need to do, and you may not like what you're doing, but you still do it anyways because you have a larger objective, larger goal. And so you want to go for a goal that inspires you or that is big enough, right? The goal has to be big enough, but the actions have to be small enough, right? So that's the dichotomy here that I've learned over the years. I didn't have words for it then.
Yeah.
But and yeah, so going forward,
Yeah.
Fast forward, I came to the States, and the education was never. There was another really interesting moment when I came to United States. At that moment, 1989, in Chicago, like city of Chicago, there were so many Jewish immigrants, Russian Jewish immigrants, and there was the only immigrant population in that school, to the point where the ESL teacher was Russian, and everyone in the classroom of ESL was Russian.
Okay.
And so I go to my first class in 7th grade, and the dude is speaking Russian the whole day, speaks Russian.
Yeah.
And I go home and I'm like, Mom, Dad, I got to get out of this class. I'm not going to learn anything. This guy just speaks Russian. So my parents, bless them, went to the principal and told the principal to take me out of that ESL class and put me in regular classes.
Yeah.
But there was a problem. My parents didn't speak English, so they needed a translator.
Yeah.
Do you want to guess who the translator was?
You.
No, I didn't speak any English either.
It
was the ESL teacher. Who I am saying, he's terrible.
Yeah.
So he had to translate that I didn't want to be in his class because he was just speaking Russian. And the principal is like, you're signing your son to fail.
Okay.
I just want you to understand, you have the right to take him out, but you're signing your son to fail. And my parents knew my personality. I don't know, actually. I don't remember exactly how it went down. But they said, no, we still want him in normal. He wants to be in normal classes. We believe in him. He needs to be in normal classes. And sure enough, the first month was terrible. I didn't understand anything.
Yeah.
But the school was so much different. Nobody was bullying me the same way that I was bullied in Russia. And so I really excelled, and I learned the best, right? And I learned best by immersion. And I think that's another really good lesson, that if you want to accelerate, you really need to immerse yourself. When many years later, when I lived in Japan, I immersed myself in Japanese language, where I would hitchhike and learn from the people who would drive me places. And I built my Japanese that way. So like this idea of immersion, of cutting the ties with the thing that keeps you comfortable, getting uncomfortable and learning. Now that I'm talking, like that's what I did during my 7th grade, right? And then fast forward, I think all the way through high school, my parents got their jobs, defied the odds. We moved to a nicer neighborhood, better high school. And I had a dream. I had a dream of going to University of Chicago, and we couldn't afford it. It was just too expensive. So my dad told me, take small steps, go to a community college, go to a local college, and start there. And so I did. And then I transferred to University of Chicago. And, I didn't like it. I thought my parents are supposed to be, the entitled 18-year-old. They should support me. But no, they don't. They taught me a very valuable lesson of trying to do my own thing. And through the whole time, I had my own business. I was a personal trainer. And, this whole idea of actual fitness it's also a really funny story. When I was 14 years old, I was tired of being bullied. And I remember going ninth grade, they threw pennies at me.
Right.
You know, like, and I thought they were throwing pennies at me. I didn't know they threw pennies at just freshmen. And I said, no. I am not going to be bullied again.
Yeah.
So the first thing I did is I begged, pleaded, and got my dad to get me a membership at Bally Total Fitness.
Okay.
And I remember I started reading Schwarzenegger's bodybuilding book. I'm like, I'm going to bulk up. and remember, I'm 14 years old, 95 pounds.
A quarter or something?
Yeah, quarter or something. And so the first time I went into a free weight room,
yeah,
the guy kicked me out. There was a guy who was working out there, and he kicked me out because I was too small. 2 years later, he was my client.
Wow.
He was paying me money to train him
Yeah.
because I gained 30 pounds in a year, and I gained another 30. And, I was living my lifestyle, and I was building my personality, my character. I became a bodybuilder. And to me, it was one of those formative moments where I saw a result of my labor. Like I could see it on myself. You know that feeling, right? And in my case, it was gaining weight. In your case, it was losing weight.
Right.
But this idea of like being competent, that learned competence through hard work was really, really powerful. I remember I would go back from school. I would get on the the wrong school bus to get me to the gym. And then I would be in the gym and my dad would pick me up from there. Right. And then that became my first job. And that became kind of the catalyst that for everything else. Right. So then to me, I've had, so that's kind of the main thing. One of the other major challenges in my life that happened was medical school. So I was lucky enough to go to medical school. And after I spent a year in Japan, and I got into really good schools. And this is where a really good lesson, a really cautionary tale. Sometimes when we are in success mode, when we're what I call in wildfire, when we're successful, there's a really good chance that we become prideful.
Mm.
And we think that we can do anything. And there's a reason why pride is one of those cardinals, 7 deadly sins or whatever. But pride can really screw you up. And it screwed me up. It tripped me. I thought that I was all this, I was smart, I could do anything. And I went to med school and everyone was smart. Everyone was above average. 20% of the class had photographic memory.
Yeah.
And I was an undiagnosed ADHD, right, with a narcolepsy problem. So like I hit that wall so fast. And that was another huge lesson, is that when I learned to associate my success with my self-worth with success.
We were just talking about that.
We just talked about that, right? But the idea is that is a false narrative. That is a fool's errand.
Mm.
The worth comes from within. Success is an outcome of hard work. It is not a reflection of one's worth. But I didn't know that. And so what happened when my medical school career tanked and I tried really hard, I lost my self-worth. If I was not a doctor, what was I supposed to be, right? Mm-hmm. And I was supposed to be a doctor because, like you had parents who were in gang, and so you knew gang life. Both of my grandmothers were pediatricians. I knew I was going to be a pediatrician. Now, would I have been a good doctor? I don't know. But the bottom line is I was not prepared for the process. And the process shook me because my identity was too tied. I didn't have a growth mindset. I had a fixed mindset and I couldn't learn. And I wanted to do it my way or the highway, and it didn't work. And I didn't change the way I learned. And so I constantly, I could not succeed. And so that is one failure. I decided to leave medical school, move to Seattle, and I have a very successful career as as entrepreneur, as a professor of entrepreneurship, as a coach. So I don't have many regrets, but the regret of not finishing what I started because I let pride get in the way
It's a big one.
is a really big one.
Yeah, I think the other thing that comes to me through this all is like I'm trying to make sense of like how education became so important. You did mention like, having, your grandparents as role models, but also just like coming over here from a different country, having to experience that, not knowing, like going through these ESL classes and not knowing like, where life's going to end up in this space that's completely new to you. How did you like, what were like the mindsets that you had to have like to continue to progress through school, like in this land that was new to you? You didn't have any friends coming over here or anything like that, right?
No
How did
friends.
you deal with that?
So again, role models. One of the things my dad taught me one time when I was being on a particular nasty night when I came from school with a black eye. And I remember we walked around the block and I told him about all my woes. And he said, listen, if you can't beat them, be smarter than them. I'll beat them where you are good. Be smarter. If you can't be stronger, be smarter. And I said, okay, right? So that, and just the culture in my culture, in that kind of education is everything, right? There's a joke about a Jewish mother who sees her son becoming a president of the United States, and she's in the inauguration ceremony, and she turns to the guy behind him and says, his brother is a doctor. So like, so that was there's the dark side of that thing, right? Because I'm the black sheep in the family because I have an MBA and not a doctor.
Right.
Like every cousin has a doctor.
Right.
And so we become the products of our environment. But the idea is I needed to define my own life, and I didn't know that because my life was structured for me. And I'm sure there are many very miserable doctors out there who are listening to it right now, right? Who did finish school, who are good at what they do, but they're not doing what they love, right? They're not following their passion. And so they're empty inside, right? So this idea of living your best life involves redefining it. Now, would I have been able to be successful as a doctor? Not sure. But the bottom line is, for me to be successful as a doctor, I would have had to redefine it for myself on my terms, not on terms of I was living my parents' life and I wasn't living mine. And so many young people live their parents' expectations.
Yeah, exactly.
I see it all the time teaching, especially the foreign students who come here and their parents say, listen, you are our hopes and dreams. You have to fulfill it by doing what we tell you. And that is never a success. It's never a path to success. It might be financial success, but it's never a path to happiness, I believe. Yeah, so that's why education was so important to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that it was instilled early on, and it shows perspective and upbringing, honestly. Like if
you didn't have that.
Exactly.
Right? So again, for every one of these, there's a virtue and there's a dark side.
For sure.
But I want to shift to like the most formative experience of my life that I would say, and that is the prison. Where we met. So I remember in 2013, I was doing Toastmasters, and I heard that there was a Toastmasters club inside Monroe Correctional Complex that was winning all these awards, and I'm like, well, I want to learn, like, how do they do it? And I remember coming into the prison, and I was scared. I almost lost my breakfast. Like, it was early morning on a Sunday, and I'm like, what am I doing here, going through these doors? And like, I've never been, you've been arrested. How old were you when you were first arrested? 13 years old. I've never, I'm in my 30s. I've never been in the cop car. And so I'm like petrified. I'm like, what am I doing here? And then I remember we're standing in that same VR where I met you, and the men are coming in, and they were starting to shake my hands. And like they shook my hand, but they didn't just shake my hand. They shook my hands like a lifeline. Like I was the guy that is going to help them succeed
Yeah.
because they're drowning. They appreciated my presence there so much. I was so touched by it, as do everyone who I bring to prison. I bring hundreds of people to prison legally, and as volunteers, they get out. But this experience has transformed me because I realized that this is what I would later define as my daffodil.
Mm.
So my mentor, Dredd from F3, defined this concept of daffodil and a dolphin. And a dolphin is something that you are meant to do. Like dolphins are meant to swim and have fun. You and I can go swimming, but
Right.
we ain't no dolphins.
Right.
We will never be. That is what is effortless and joyous. So one of the goals in life is to find your dolphin. But the other one, just as important, even more important, is to find your daffodil. And by daffodil, he means find the hill that you want to die on, fighting for, where daffodils can grow over your grave. A little bit dark, but I love the idea. And for me, getting emotional, prison reform or helping those inside the prison like you has become my daffodil. And I had to think long and hard why. I even wrote a speech about it one time. And I realized that the reason is, coming full circle, is because I believe that the men and women who come through those doors for those educational opportunities, when you came to those, they're immigrants from a different type of America, right? The America where my knife that I bought when I was 12 would have been in place. It would have been useful.
Right.
I never had to experience that America, but you did. And so many others did. And I was lucky enough not to have adverse childhood experiences. You did. So when I see men and women who are coming into the educational programs through the Defy program or through Restart Academy or through Toastmasters, I see them as wanting asylum, wanting to change their life into a different way of life. And I will be damned if I don't help them. I will be damned, right?
Right.
And I do it because if I don't do it, this is one of those things where I could say, you know what, if I didn't show up, this meeting would not have happened. Period.
Yeah.
Right? And we had that happen this year, right? When one of our Defy Ventures workers, he lost his footing, right? Formerly incarcerated, lost his footing, lost his mission, lost his vision, became involved in drugs, and got reincarcerated again. And our program, overnight, he didn't tell us, overnight was in danger of being shut down. And I said, not on my watch. So I still had the rights to go in, and I went in and I picked up the program, and we are now in 2 prisons going on 3rd, right?
Right.
So that's my daffodil. So that I want everybody to think about, if you don't have in your life a dolphin, the thing that you're really good at, this thing that we're doing here, I'm really good at it. This is my dolphin. Being able to inspire and engage people to action. He knows it because he lives it, right? I'm a catalyst.
Yeah.
I drive through. I can't organize myself worth of crap. I am late to almost every workout, but I know how to fire people up.
Yeah. You know what you're good at.
I know what I'm good at. And I'm going to build myself a group of people around me who will be good at what they do, for whom their dolphin is different from my dolphin, but their daffodil is my daffodil. They want to be on my hill. They want to build a community of go-getters, of transformers, of those who defy the odds. So to me, that's what drives me.
That's so awesome, man. And I'm glad that you were able to go into prison and just make such an impact, right? Like, you didn't have to do all of the stuff that you continue to do for us. And I think that it just speaks to your heart and your upbringing of having, just to care for another person. I love the perspective of thinking about them as immigrants as well, right? Because that's something that you could relate to. It's something that's, close to home for you, and you're able to share that with others, that raw experience. And I know me going through that first class, you were just like that spark that I needed. And I'm sure you're that spark for many, many people inside the facility.
Yeah, because it's dark there, man.
For
That
sure.
place is so dark. I don't realize it because I don't live. I've never, I've been doing this for over 10 years, but I've never been inside,
Right.
the buildings where you all live, right? There's a lot of toxicity there, right? And I wanted to, I want to have another have another interview with you later on, just to hyper focus on your prison years and talk about the prison system. But it's dark in there, and so coming in, I often ask people, why do you want to do this program? Because like they have to get strip searched on the way out. Like, I mean, think about you all who are listening to this or watching this, right? Like, if you had to go to a class that you had to get strip searched afterwards, you'd be like, this class better be good. Like,
Right.
I'm not dropping my pants for some stupid class. I'm, so, that to me really crystallized, like, I gotta do things that matter, and this matters, right? And I measure my life in ROI, but this time it's return on impact, not return on investment.
Right.
And this is impactful. And that's why I bring people to prison. We have an event coming up on March 12th, 2025, that I will leave the link in the notes for people to register if you're listening in a tiny window of time to register. But the idea is there are going to be others where you'll have an opportunity to go for a day inside the prison. And if you're hearing this and you're like, heck yeah, I want to do it, go to defyventures.org, reach out to them, tell them that you heard it from Leo, and go. Right? We're in at least 9 states and over 25 prisons. It is a program that does change lives. But more importantly, for me, it changed my life. And it still defines my life. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that. I think we could shift the conversation to just outside of the prison experience, outside of outside of the Defy programs, inside the facility. How are you continuing to show up? How are you continuing to defy your own odds in your personal life?
So for me, some of my obstacles that I need to defy the odds for right now is this podcast and this coaching business, and bringing it off the ground into a feasible, scalable business. I've been teaching entrepreneurship for 10 years. I've been a serial entrepreneur on and off, but this is the time of my life where it really matters for me to succeed and build something that lasts and outlasts me, and brings value at the same time that it creates value for me and my family. So I'm trying to utilize all of these lessons that I've learned from my mentors. I'm trying to build a network of mentors. I'm trying to build a shield lock to hold me accountable. Victor being one of my shield lock. I'm trying to define the vision so clear that it's so visually consistent to me, right? And then I'm also trying to define my, so that's the big one. The other one is just define my relationship with others, with my kids and my family and my friends and my partners, all of it. These things are so critical because the people who are closest to me, that make up my chosen family, are the ones that will support me when I'm down, right? Because each one of us is going to go down. It is inevitable. And especially if we're trying to reach something, we're going to fail or not succeed again and again, right?
Yeah.
But just keep going. Just say no to an obstacle and keep moving. This is one of those examples. So I think those are the two major ones: my business and my family, and how do I stay and be present with my kids, How do I stay and be present with my business? And how do I not overstretch myself and do too many things, right? That those of you who know me know that that is a thing. But that is, those are my challenges, and I approach them in the same way as I approach all problems. I say, who's in my network? How do I build my network? How do I serve my network? And then I allow my network to help me, and then I show up. Sometimes late, but I always show up.
Yeah, good call outs. Family and business, trying to identify like where you fit in and how to create that balance as we were talking about earlier. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I do have one closing question to kind of give to our listeners. Leo, there's a lot of good information here, but just any piece of advice that you could share with our listeners that could be most impactful, in their lives when they're, thinking about defying the odds or facing a certain challenge at their point or at this point in time. What advice would that be?
My advice is your network is your net worth. That when you're failing or you think you're failing, when I think I'm failing, the last thing I want to do is reach out and tell someone else I'm failing.
Mm.
It is embarrassing. It is vulnerable. It is scary. And the last thing, I just want to, my knee-jerk response, and I'm sure those of many who are listening, is to cover up, fake it till you make it, try to get it done on your own. And then once you succeed, then go and talk to people who you respect and who matter. That is a recipe for disaster. So my advice is pride is your enemy. Vulnerability is your friend. And you still have to step up. I still have to step up. But your network is your net worth. And it's not networking. It's network, meaning that there are people to whom you've given value and who are willing to give value back to you because you've given them value already, right? You pay it forward. You never pay back. I mean, you pay back too, but you pay it forward. And then you lean on your network. That is my advice, because without that, so many people fail. And they fail because they forget or they choose not to ask for help. And I think I've somehow, with my immigration story and everything else, I was forced to keep asking for help. So that ask for help muscle is really strong in me. And so I would really encourage people to, when you're in good places, help others. If you have skills, tools, money, resources, use them to help others, and because it's the right thing to do. But it also will build goodwill and will build your net worth in your network. So don't do it by yourself and secretly. There might be reason for that too, but build a network that believes you and believes in you. So then when you're in need, they will come to your aid as well.
Love that. Yeah, that's a good way to end this podcast. Thank you, Leo, once again. Remember, your network is your net worth.
That's right. And I just want to finish by saying that I've never had a brother. I'm the only child. But if I had one, I would want him to be my brother.
Thank you, brother. You are a brother to me.
That's right. All right. Signing off, everybody.
All right,
let's
y'all
go
have
defy the odds.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Boom. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Defying the Odds.
We hope you found inspiration, insight, and maybe a new way of looking at the challenges in your own life.
Remember, defying the odds is a mindset, and you have what it takes to overcome anything.
If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe.
Until next time, keep pushing forward, stay resilient, and never stop defying the odds.